Welcome everybody to this new series on the channel where we are starting to learn JavaScript by creating beginner-friendly coding challenges. So today we're going to be creating a color randomizer. Here's the project. If I click this randomize color button, you can see that the color changes. If I keep clicking it, each time a new color will be generated. This is totally random, and this is the final product that we're going to be making today. So let's just get into the actual code. You can see that I'm on my code/YouTube directory on my folder. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to create a new folder, mkdir. You don't have to do this from the terminal. You can just go ahead and just create your own folder and open it up in VS Code. I'm assuming a regular familiarity with both HTML, CSS, and VS Code for this series. So we're just going to be focusing more on the JavaScript. So I'm just going to create a new folder called color randomizer JS, or we can flip it around, JS color randomizer, and we can cd into the folder we just created. Now if we click code period, it will open up in a new VS Code window. Okay, let's remove everything here, and now we have a fresh VS Code window. We can create the index.html. Here, this is our basic HTML file. Every JavaScript needs an HTML on the browser to work. So we're just going to rename this JS color randomizer. And we're just going to have a button here that says change color. Now if we save it, and if I right click here and click open with live server, this live server is a VS Code extension. You can see it here, live server. You can just go to the extension panel here and just search for live server, and you can download it from there. It's free and it is very helpful. You can just right click it here and click open with live server. What this does is actually creates a new JavaScript applied HTML page here. Now you can see that we have the change color button, but it doesn't really do anything. All we did was create an HTML file and host it on our local server. Now if I come here, if I come here and if I change something, for example, if I say hello, and if I save it, you can see hello being applied here. That's what live server does. It basically changes everything without you having to refresh again and again. If I remove it, you can see it again here. It has been removed. Next up, we're going to be needing some styling through CSS just for basic styling purposes. Here, you can do that through the link tag, rel, or relationship would be a ref style sheet, and the href would be, let's remove this folder, don't need it, and this href would be the location of our style file. So I'm going to create a new file here. I'm going to call it style.css, and here if I link it here by saying / and style.css, it will link it here. It will link this file. Now if we go to the browser, nothing would be changed because the CSS file is currently empty. We need to apply some CSS to it in order to get our desired changes. Now if I just copy this and paste it here, this is the CSS we're going to be using. I'm just skipping over it because this series is not focused on CSS, but rather JavaScript. Now, one thing to know here is that this is very simple. All we're doing is applying box sizing border box to everything. You just don't need to understand currently what this does. If you're not familiar, you just have to put it there. We are making the min height of the body 100 view height, meaning it will take full height of the screen. And this display grid place content center just places everything in the center. Also, we are giving the per button more padding. This aims to make it more bigger, and cursor pointer will make our cursor become a pointer when we hover over it. So when we hover over it, it becomes a pointer, and you can see that the button here is at the center of our screen. Okay, so what now? Now we can start working on the JavaScript. First of all, we need a JavaScript file. Obviously, there are three ways, actually there are two primary ways of including the JavaScript in a file, in an HTML file. The first being to write it inline here within the file. We can just write anything we want here. But for organizational purposes, I'm going to be putting everything in a different JavaScript file. So I'm just going to have to create it here. I'm going to say main.js, or you could say index.js. I prefer main.js for now, so I'm just going to put it like that. And I'm just going to say something here, console.log hello. What this will do, it will just log out our hello text here into the actual console of the window. We'll be seeing that in action after we just include it here. We can say main.js. And now if we go to our browser, right click, inspect here, and go here to the console. If you don't see it, it might be hidden here under more tools. So just go here, and when you go to the console, you can see hello being printed. Now, after we do that, the thing we have to focus on here is changing the DOM. The DOM, or the Document Object Model, is an API that JavaScript uses to communicate with the HTML and the browser. So we have to be focusing on that. Now, in order for that to work, we have to put the script under everything in the body. So just right here, just behind the body closing tag. The reason for that is that you want everything to be loaded here before working with anything that is not being loaded. So you want the button tag to be loaded and the element to be visible before you want to change it up or modify it. So the reason we're doing that here is basically to keep the proper order of the loading of the DOM. Now, I prefer to put it in the head for organizational purposes. I prefer to make everything that is being externally linked in the head. So how am I going to do that? If I just go here and click and write defer here, defer basically means that everything that this JavaScript file has will be applied after the whole HTML body has been written or has been loaded. So we have to use defer if we want to put our script inside of the head tag. So now if I save our file, and now if I go here, we can work with our JavaScript file and the HTML file from our JavaScript file without any interruptions. Okay, so where do we start? Currently, we don't have any interactivity. What I mean by that is if I just click here, nothing actually changes, nothing happens. This is not interactive. So what we want to do is we want to go here, and first of all, we want to get our button into the JavaScript file. JavaScript doesn't know any of our HTML elements. So we have to tell JavaScript to get those elements first before working on them. We can say const button equals document dot query selector button. If we save it, now we have the button from our HTML file here. But what exactly did we do? We said document, meaning we are referencing our HTML document here. Then query selector means using the CSS query selector that we are using here, the selectors that are default to the styling, which I assume that you know basic CSS. So this should be very easy for you. And in the brackets here, we are passing in this button string. This is the same as this button string right here. This is the query in CSS, but in JavaScript it is written as a string. That's very simple. So we are getting the button using default CSS query selection. So now if we say button.add events listener and we say click, then we say handle click. We need then to create the function to handle click. Handle click equals console.log button clicked. So what did we do here? We are taking the button and we are accessing its event listener. Event listener is a JavaScript method that helps us add event listeners to objects. What that means is if we want to listen to something happening to an element, then we can use the add event listener method. Then here the click is the event that we are listening to. There are so many clicks. There are so many event listeners. There's abort, animation cancel, then there's animation end, animation iteration, cancel, change, click, hover, not hover, mouse over, mouse down. There are so many events listeners, but now we want the click event listener. This is the most common one. So we're just gonna save it here, and then we are passing in the second argument, which is the function that will happen on click. So when we click the button, what should happen? This function should run. What does this do? This function, this is an arrow function, by the way. You should be familiar with this syntax. This is basic JavaScript. If you don't understand it, just write it out. In time, you're going to get it. It's basically just a function. So this function will run, and it's very important that you don't put a parenthesis here. This is a pure calling of the function. So if you put those parentheses there, the function would run without even you having to click the button, which is not what we want. We want the button to be first clicked, then this would run. Now here we are just console.logging button click. So let's check out this in action. If we go here and if we just click here, you can see in our console it says button clicked. If we keep clicking it, it will be printed again and again. Okay, now what? Next, we want to be able to generate our colors. So how are we going to be doing that? So colors in CSS are composed of two elements. The first element here is the hash symbol. This hash symbol indicates that you are going to be passing in a hexadecimal color. So hexadecimal colors are 6-digit colors that are created using hexadecimal values. Now I'm assuming again that you're familiar with CSS, so this should be very simple for you. For example, FFFFFF, this is completely white, as you can see here. Now if we go 0000000, that is completely black. So 0 is the lowest number you could give and F is the highest value you could give. So F means full white and 0 means full black. Now the first two here are for red, FF. If we give this full colors and if we let the other parts be 0, then red would be applied. If we pass in, this is following the RGB standard, so red, green, and blue. Now if we pass in blue here, it will become purple or pink here. So it is basically we are adding a full red, which we are a full blue. So we following this convention. And how are we gonna generate a color? So we want to say const color here, and we want to give this color value generate color. This is a function that does not exist, so we have to create it here. We have to say const generates color, and we'll use another arrow function. Here you will be familiar with the arrow function the more you use it, and we have to say let color equals this hash symbol. Now currently this color does not exist because only a hash symbol is not a color. You wouldn't need the accommodating 6 values for it to be a valid color. So we have to generate those values. So first of all, we have to have our hexadecimal set. What this is basically, it is the set of possible values for hex color. Again, CSS. So what are the possible values? We can have 0 in, we can have 1, we can have 2, we can have 3, again 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So all the numbers, right? All the base numbers. Then we can continue. We can say A, B, C, D, E, and the final one F. So here in CSS, colors go from lower strings to upper strings in this order. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are the number hex sets, and A, B, C, D, E, F are the letter hex sets. The letters are much stronger. So if I say for example here 1100 AA, what happens here is becomes more of a blue because the numbers 1 are very weak. So the blue here, the blue part would be dominating. Again, if I say FF here, FF is in the middle, so the middle 2 are for green. Again, red, green, blue. So the green would dominate. So now we're just going to give it the hash symbol, and we're going to be creating a random number from a random color actually from those hex sets. So for let I equals 0, I as long as it's less than 6, and through each iteration increment I by 1. This is a basic for loop where we are running the loop as long as I, which is initially 0, is less than 6, and through each iteration we are incrementing I by 1. So after running 6 times, the loop would stop. We need to make this 6 because hexadecimal colors have 6 digits. So how are we gonna create the colors? So the basic way of doing this would be to say const random. This is the number that we're going to be using to select one element from this array. So we can say math.random. Okay, so this math.random would be generating a random number, right, from 0 to 1. If we just say return color here for now, by the way, we will need to return this color to apply it here, right? So we can get over here, and if we just say console.log brand num to test it out, this should run 6 times and it should give us 6 different random values. Again, if we click it, 6 different random values from 0 to 1. You can see the lowest being 0.21 and the biggest being currently 0.99. But we can't really select an element from an array using decimal numbers. So what we have to do is we want to floor it. But before flooring it, we have to multiply it by the hex set dot length, meaning we'll be generating any number from 0 to 16 because there are 16 values here. So when we multiply that, now when we click here, this should be 30.25, 0.32. Actually 0 will never be generated. It should be bigger than 0, but we still wanted the 0, so we will have to do something here. Again, here you can see all the numbers that are being generated, but we can't really use them because JavaScript arrays don't accept decimals. So in order for this to work, what we have to do is basically cover this inside of a parenthesis and pass it to the method math.floor. This is basic flooring, which you have probably learned in maths. It basically takes the decimal and rounds it down. It rounds the decimal down. So now if I click the button, you can see we are getting full numbers. Now we have to use these random numbers in order to get a color hex. So we can say color plus equals, meaning we are in each of the 6 iterations, we will be concatenating an extra letter or an extra hex set element into the color. So now we can say hex set rand no. Okay, so now through each iteration 6 times, we are generating a color that has these hex sets involved in them. So to test this out, we can just go here and say console.log color. So now we can see the result. If I click this, you can see that we have a hexadecimal color that works in CSS. So what is happening here? We have the color which starts from a hash, and through each iteration 6 times, a random number will be selected that is in the set of this hex set, and the color, this hex set element would be applied to this color here. So 6 times 6 digits would be added to this color. Finally, we are returning the color from this generate color function, which is being called here and being assigned to the value of the color. Now when we console.log this color, each time we should be getting a completely different new color. So how do we apply this color to our background? This is very simple. First, we need our body elements. So we can say const body equals document. Again, the same thing we did with the button. Query selector. Now instead of saying button, we have to say body. Now if we just, instead of console.logging this, if we say body dot style, the style property is the CSS style declaration that comes directly from the CSS API into JavaScript, meaning we can use this style to change the different properties of the element freely in JavaScript. So if I say dot here, you can see many properties that are all possible to find in CSS. Now if we just say background color here, which is the value we want to be changing, and we can assign this to color. So this is the new randomly generated color, and we are assigning it to this body, which we got from the HTML using this syntax here. And we are saying the body, go to the style and find the background color, which is currently white, and then assign the background color this color. Now if we save it and if we go here, this is the moment of truth. We can just close this off for now. When I click it, a new color should be generated, and you can see it here. If I keep clicking it, a completely random color will be generated. You can play around with this code, you can change it up however you want, you can experiment with it. But this is a very simple and a very interesting implementation of random color generation in JavaScript. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. But that's it for today.